In this video, we're going to talk about relatively rich people versus relatively poor people. People who are earning a higher six-figure salary versus people who are earning less money. So let's listen to a few different perspectives here.
We need to realize that these people are on the street not because of their own choosing, but because of the system that we live in perpetuates these things.
If I could speak to that, I come from a family that once relied on welfare and food stamps, and I've been blessed enough to make millions of dollars in real estate. But had I bought real estate from 2005 to 2008, I'd probably be bankrupt today. I just bought it at the right time.
People wish to be rich, they don't want to be rich. The difference is, do you take action? That being said, I agree with a lot of your points you're making about people not really having the resources or the opportunity to have any kind of action plan.
Some people don't even want to be rich. I don't want to be rich, but I also don't want to be poor. I'm happy in the middle. And I would want to live in a society where they could perpetuate people to lift themselves out of poverty through programs and just be in the middle.
Billionaires.
So we started with a short clip, right, where someone's talking about whether they want to be poor or rich, or is being poor a choice. Now, I want to mention a few things here, right? So firstly, this guy's talking about making money in real estate, which is the guy over here, right? The guy you can see on the screen with a jacket on. Now, making money in real estate, of course, it involves a certain amount of risk, but there also is an element of luck of the era you were in, because it's easier to buy those assets a few decades ago compared to now when things are particularly overpriced. So there is an element of market timing, right? And you need to understand financial markets. So there is a bit of skill and luck involved there, right? The other thing is, this guy who's in the blue t-shirt here, the dark blue t-shirt here with the hat on, he was talking about how many people, they want to be rich, they wish to be rich, but they don't want to be rich. They don't want to put the work in to be rich. That's what he's implying, right? Now, I think there's a lot of things to consider here, right? Lots of people don't waste time complaining, waste their times on politics, news, distractions. And there's a famous book by Napoleon Hill. Many people know Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich. But there's another book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And the whole point is you want to take risks. You don't want to be drifting, right? That's the key concept of the book, is that the devil or evil forces really ruin and waste people's lives by making them drifting. They're scrolling through their phone, they're wasting time with gossip and idle chatter, not doing much, and they basically end up being lazy and being basically aloof, and they're maximizing their time. They're wasting their time really by doing everything apart from being productive. So if you want to be successful, I would say, in any way, shape or form, and avoid being poor, you need to start taking risks, right? Even job hopping, side hustles, moving abroad. Lots of people are worried about you taking a risk and it being a setback, but you have to take calculated risk. That's the only way to live life. If you think you're going to live a stable life in the middle, it's just not going to work, right? And other people, if you're too worried about other people's opinion of you, you're not going to take those risks that result in financial freedom. Following the path everyone else is taking is going to give you the same results as everyone else, and you can see a majority of people are not doing well right now. You want to start winning by stop playing the status game, right? And the thing is, this guy said, this Hispanic guy was talking about how he doesn't want to be rich or poor. He just wants to be in the middle. Now, there's no middle anymore, right? There's no middle class anymore, right? You either want to focus on getting extremely rich or be content with having less and basically being middle class poor, or being the working poor, where there's going to be very little difference between the middle class and the people who are living on benefits and living on government handouts in the future, right? So you need intense realism, right? Intense realism is a concept I've covered in previous videos, and it's referenced in the book by Robert Greene and 50 Cent called The 50th Law. And it's all about seeing reality for what it is. We're not living in the 1950s illusion. Society wants a rich and poor classes, but no one in the middle, right? There's no middle left to overthrow, right? The leadership. There's no people who are going to overthrow and redo the system. And what he doesn't seem to get is that this whole idea of a middle class was a manufactured reality, right? Typically throughout history, you have many rich people and some rich people and many poor people, right? You always had these two classes. Even if you look at medieval times, I've studied economic history, but you can go through any period of history before, let's just say post World War II, there's always been many poor people and a handful of rich people at the top. That's been more normal than the middle class. And this manufactured reality just doesn't exist anymore, right? So there's no point trying to be like, oh, can we change the system to make it okay for me to be average and be an average man and have a decent life? That just doesn't exist. And you covered this briefly in some of my diagrams here. I'm going to mention it briefly here. I don't want to cover this whole thing about the decline in genders in detail, but what I do want to say to you is that this family man lifestyle, this little meme that goes on viral every now and again on Twitter, on right-wing Twitter, where these guys want to be, oh, I want to be a trad wife. And they have this little image here you can see in the center right now. This guy coming home at work and his wife is, chores and taking care of the kids. This isn't the reality now, right? The reality is both people are working, they're struggling, they're not going to be able to afford that house or that car, they're going to be living a very difficult life. And in many cases, the best case scenario some people can hope for is this power couple you can see on your screen here, right? Whereby you have man and woman both working and a very dysfunctional gender dynamics where the woman's in control compared to the man. And you have a lot of basically focus on being a corporate slave, right? Consumerism and corporate work, basically. This is the reality for many people. So it's kind of difficult to deal with. I know many people don't accept the reality of it, how different it is compared to the past, but wishing the system would change and go back to the past is just not the strategy. You want to find a solution that actually works for you financially. Now we're going to talk about whether billionaires should exist and the economy is rigged in your favor or not.
The economy is rigged.
I would actually...
You're born in a rich family, you have more opportunities. And as someone who is poor, living paycheck to paycheck, you're stuck having to apply to jobs and settle for things that you don't like instead of being able to follow your passions.
I agree and disagree. Agree that it's rigged to incentivize certain areas and behaviors, like of millions and millions of farm subsidies. So it supports agribusiness. Exactly. May support one area like real estate or capital investment over labor, but I don't think it's generally rigged to basically keep the rich guy poor. That part I'll disagree. But there are certain policies like the reinvestment, productive people's hands for building real estate. I would say that's a good thing, right?
When you say productive people, like just mean people with money?
No, I mean people that actually take that money, organize people, put it to work, and create value. That's what I mean by productive people.
But who creates the value? It's the workers who create the value.
Listen, there's people who take risk and they risk their money. That's creating value. What you discount is the person willing to risk their savings, okay? Provide capital for that venture and to be paid last. So if it goes busto, the worker still gets paid, the investor doesn't. If it goes well, the worker gets paid and the investor makes money. You discount the role of capital and savings in any type of venture. Like mom didn't want to be rich. She wanted to be a school teacher and work and do that and live in the middle ground, and that's fine. But there are people like me who want to take a lot of risk and get a lot of reward. And we put that capital to work. And you should respect that. Hi, my name is Bill Perkins. I run a hedge fund. I do investments and other things. I manage my own money. How much I make annually, sometimes I lose money, but I'd say on average over 10 million a year. I took care of my dad in the last years of his life. He broke. I did not inherit my money. I made it myself. I really don't care about the money. Money is a tool for me to have the experiences that I want to have out of life. And there are many experiences that I want to have.
You have to have a certain level of awareness and knowledge to know the rules of the game. And I think that there are barriers put in place to kind of, from knowing the rules, but I think that it's out there and you can have access to it, and it's, and knowing
I agree
the rules
with
is
you.
different.
I know the rules and I think they're disgusting. That's why I want to change them.
Why don't you play the game then? I mean,
I think they're disgusting. Why would I want to play the game?
As a real estate guy, I can make millions of dollars and use the exact same tax loopholes that a Donald Trump would use and pay effectively no tax. And does that make me a bad guy, or did I just study the tax code?
It makes you a bad guy, yeah.
You do?
If you do that, yeah.
I'm the law to a T.
The law is wrong, yeah.
Why is it wrong? It's the law.
I'm not.
You think just because it's law, it's always right?
No, certainly not.
I'm not saying
but
that.
That's my point.
No, the law is written to encourage investment, is what the guy wants. So he's investing. So the law is written to encourage certain things. If you disagree with it, you can go lobby and change. But he's not a bad guy.
I know you mentioned that there are barriers in place that do keep people kind of in conditions, but I don't think that we all acknowledge
Well, that's where I was going. So if I can reflect on myself, I mean, when I was living in poverty, I was trying to survive. So I didn't even have the brain capacity to try or the willpower to kind of access the rules of the economy. But I mean, I had an epiphany, and I literally woke up one day and I was like, I cannot live the rest of my life like this, and I don't care if people call me lame, square, they're going to question my black.
So there's a couple interesting points here, right? So firstly, is the economy really rigged? Now, I would say, want to give their kids a good future, right? And have an element of nepotism, of hiring their kids, putting their kids in favorable corporate roles, or getting them to work for them, even though they might not be the most competent person. I think that's completely natural, right? And there's also other instances where the economy is rigged, where certain farms get massive government subsidies to grow certain crops, right? So people are living on government handouts, not just the people you see in government housing, but also many people are working different jobs. Many companies who are getting bailouts, big financial banks which are meant to have lots of experts got big bailouts and handouts from the government. So that's interesting, right? So I think the economy is rigged to a certain extent, whereby if you hold assets because of the money printing and the inflation, which means that if you own assets, a lot of money is going to be made because there's going to be inflation of property value and the value of any assets you own. Financial markets have a lot of insider trading from big banks, even though they pretend they're not doing that. And then also, small time trader, and you don't have all the inside trading information, you're not going to make as much money as those top who are rigging the market effectively, right? Hedge funds, this guy we saw earlier who said he works in a hedge fund or is manages a hedge fund and he's earning 10 million or more. Hedge funds do a lot of questionable things. There's lots of gray areas in finance and investing whereby they might have information you don't have, so they have a lot of money that made that way. And I studied economic history, and when you're in the late stage of a civilization, what ends up happening is that there's more financial speculation. And you can look through any empire towards the end, if there are financial markets that are developed, there's lots of financial speculation, and in a sense, they end up basically relying on that. And that's where you see one of the main ways of making money in this society now is gambling or trading and things like that. And I'm not saying you can't trade or people can't invest. I'm just saying it's just a sign of like, okay, we don't have a productive economy. It's all about gambling. And also the guy who's investing in real estate that we saw earlier, he's actually the fact that if you are wealthier, you can borrow large amounts at very low interest rate. I remember working in wealth management, private banking, which is essentially banking aimed at wealthy individuals rather than companies. And they could get like a loan for $1 million at 2% interest rate, which is obviously relatively low compared to other people. And I get they have more money, so they can borrow that amount of money at low interest rates. But it really does show you to a certain extent, yes, the game is rigged. The rich can get richer and the poor can't progress. So I would say, it's better to play the game rather than whinge about it, right? If you want to waste your life focusing on political solutions instead of personal solutions, then you're going to suffer the consequences of that. People waste their lives talking about political solutions rather than personal solutions. And you see the older politicians, Bernie Sanders, America, you see Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, these guys who are like left-wing guys in their 70s or whatever, they've wasted their life and not really reaped any benefits of it in terms of changing the system that they wanted to change. And in the case of Bernie Sanders, who talks about being a socialist and whatever else, this guy owns at least 3 houses. So he's a multi-millionaire, like this idea that you're going to have these self-righteous political posturing and change the system is a bit short-sighted, and it's not really going to work out for most people. The best thing is to understand the rules of the game, like she's saying, and really make it work for you, even though it might be a bit difficult.
Check to paycheck, and on top of that, I have a crippling gambling addiction. I'm addicted to weed, I'm addicted to alcohol, I'm addicted to vaping. And as soon as I have that direct deposit, it's like I have no control, almost like I black out and I start gambling, start ordering drinks, start ordering weed, and then I come out of that no control feeling, and I'm like thinking, how am I gonna feed my pets this week, my cat, my dog? Like I had all the plans up to my payday. Before I know it, all my money's gone, and it's addiction.
When you're in a position when you don't have a lot of money, you can't do a lot of things for fun, and you're often just like working, I survive, I have to feed myself. And so when you get that paycheck and you have just a little bit of enough money to do something that will spark joy for you, it's so hard to be like, no, I'll put it aside to save. It's like, I'll just do one thing for myself, I'll just treat myself. And then it's like, well, now it's gone.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I used to think like that too, but I also thought about how joyful it would be to be rich. I would rather not have that instant gratification, because the gratification of being infinitely stable or more stable is more important.
So before we continue, we need to address the fatty on the screen right now. And the thing is people have to take responsible for their personal life choices. And I understand work is stressful. You want to take breaks. But like if you go, oh, I get my paycheck and I have a crippling addiction to this and that and I waste all my money, then it's like at that point, how can anyone feel sorry for you? Because you got to have some personal accountability. And this is what I mean about personal versus political, personal environment versus entrepreneurship, right? You got to really think for yourself and think about where you want to be. And if you want to be successful, you can't end up doing what everyone else is doing. You know how it's particularly in the US to be engaged in sports gambling is kind of particularly normal. In recent years, people are using that to make more money because they're not making much more money in their daily jobs and their normal jobs. They've also normalized substance use, particularly in America and to a certain extent in other countries. And that's why they're pushing for the legalization of smoking certain substances. It's not just because they're modernized and they're more progressive and they really care about you being able to use whatever. They know if people smoke certain substances, people are on certain prescription pills to control, right? They're not going to rebel and things like that. And that's why that's been normalized. Now, if we continue to listen to this, right, you can't blame it on the system, right? Life is a bit like a game of chess, right? And you've got to play the best move in your current position. And when I listen to the African-American lady here, right, she seems to have made good decisions. I haven't included all clips from the video. We're going to go through one more clip after this. But she actually grew up in not a wealthy environment. She is making six figures, so just above 100K. I think she said in another clip about 120K roughly per year, 120,000 US dollars. And she is working as like a holistic kind of health advisor for people, probably self-employed. And the whole point there is that she kind of identified the life wanted and how to improve it. Now she was playing the best situation in her particular life circumstances, right? So some of you can different life circumstances. You might not be able to make the transition from someone who has an interest in nutrition to becoming a nutrition coach, but there is some kind of pivot you can make over time to do that, to build that freedom for yourself, particularly when you could be, an Instagram specific niche to solve a particular health issue for a particular community. And that's probably what she's done without going into all of her background. Now, this is what I mean, right? You've got to think about what is your best move in your current position. For some people, they might not be able to make that jump, but they can make the jump from being a low-paid employee to a higher-paid contract worker or consultant, freelancer, things like that, or having a side income on the weekend. You've got to think about those moves. And the thing is with the fatty that we started with, this woman here, if you're gratification, you're going to end up like this person, right? You're not going to be able to break the cycle. It's just a cycle of addiction. And then the system wants you to be thinking short term, not longer term. The system wants you to focus on short term gratification versus longer time. That's how the system works. And that's how they use you throughout your life. Caffeine, alcohol, shows, fast gambling, different like that. The sports game, like that. You always got a new distraction. There's always a new work drinks to go to. There's another session of office, things like that. You're never going to progress. You're going to end up like this person going absolutely nowhere, getting more and more depressed, running in place like a hamster on a wheel, or a fat hamster on a wheel. So if we move on to the next clip here.
I made it a point to position myself adjacent to people I felt like I could learn from. I remember parking my little Chevy Cruze up off of Griffith in Hollywood Hills just to be around money.
Do you guys mind if I start?
Yeah, please.
A lot of problems in my life would be solved with just, not even if I was rich, but just like a little bit money. I would just have so much less stress and less things to worry about, and I wouldn't be finding myself in these situations where I'm worried about how am I going to pay rent, how am I going to get gas to drive, how am I going to eat.
More money, like more social responsibility. Going back to.
What does that mean?
Like if then you have social to take care of people who might have less than you.
Really? I'm not seeing that. In modern day life.
You got a billionaire beef.
In modern day life, what are billionaires doing?
I want to add real quick to what you were saying, that I had my first felony when I was 14 years old. I had gotten a DUI in 2018, so I was still going in and out of courthouses. I'm struggling trying to get a job, applying, getting interviews, getting a job offer, background check, offer rescinded, and that hurts a lot. But I'm over here watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and Yolanda Hadid's daughter just so happens to also get a DUI, but she's taking off in her modeling career. Like it was just a hit. I'm also sis.
I like the song More Money, More Problems.
I like it too.
It's jamming.
I love
but
the song.
it's really more money, different problems.
Yes.
I think more money, you have to make smart decisions. I've seen people with, millionaire traders and that they make terrible life decisions, terrible marriages, their wife's wasting a lot of their money. I've seen other instances they're not taking care of their health, even though they're making a lot of money, and then they end up paying for their, health situation and taking care of that. They have to deal with health costs in relation to that. I would say more money, you need to make smarter life decisions. There's more responsibility, more personal responsibility, not even social responsibility. You need to kind of focus on being in a healthy mindset, be careful around people around you. Even family members could be quite negative about your success. You want to be around inspiration. You want to focus on the direction you're heading in. For me personally, right, I have like a vision board. I have various positive images around my small apartment, and I have different cues, positive messages and that, to keep pushing in the right direction. And I think a lot of people, they get stuck in the standard life path. They get stuck in the kind of victim mindset by negative whinging co-workers. They have family members that might be aiming low, that might be negative. They're not pushing, and they have to understand that success is a stamina game, right? There is there's a line I like from a Starlito song, 1008, I think is the name of the song. And he says there's a correlation between self-respect and endurance. And many times when I see the people who are poorer, I'm not saying they should all should be bad about their lives, but are they really pushing really hard to improve their life? And I'm not saying you can immediately jump from being a low-wage worker to a multimillionaire real estate investor, but how aggressively are they pushing in the right direction? And a lot of these things are bad lifestyle habits, which we've seen here, right? Now, I would say, don't push for the class big house in the suburbs, right? That's a trap. You're told you should want that, but what you should really want is your freedom, right? And pursue alternative goals rather than get caught up in the lifestyle game or fitting in with others, right? So it's all about finding a unique solution for yourself rather than getting caught up with a victim narrative, trying to vote for the left-wing party and thinking they're going to save you. Now, if you want more power, pay and freedom, and you want to find individual solutions tailor-made for you, there is a link in the description to work with me. I offer career coaching to push you in the right direction for your financial freedom so you're not caught up being a pawn in this system. Link in the description if you want to speak with me directly. Let me know what you think about these rich and poor contrasts we see here, and I'll see you in the next video. 2 recommended videos on your screen right now.